Jonathan and Esther Pollard, shalom.
Shalom.
So first of all, we're here in the Yemenite village. We just visited Beit Yonatan. How was the feeling?
It was like a dream come true. Apart from the land and apart from Esther, it was Beit Yonatan that was foremost in my mind, and it helped focus me on what the ordeal was all about back in prison. Safeguarding the land, building the land up, and basically telling the world, we're here, we're not going anywhere, this is ours. And Beit Yonatan was a physical manifestation of that realization.
When you were there in prison, could you imagine days like these, the singing, the dancing, you holding an Israeli flag with the kids all singing to you here in Jerusalem?
No.
Could you actually, no, it was hard to imagine, right?
No, it was very hard to imagine, but you had to, because those are some of the things, the visuals that keep you alive. It's the hope, it's the dream.
And one of the things that's so difficult for Israelis to understand is the harshness of the conditions that Jonathan was in. They think, well, he was in America, and America's very humane. Not so. And because the conditions were so harsh, it became even more difficult to imagine anything like this, or that this day would come.
So what I did to keep my mind focused on this day was I had two pictures taped in my locker. One was of Esther, of course, and the other one was of Beit Yonatan.
Wow.
And that's what kept me focused every morning when I got up and every night when I went to bed. It was very difficult. They did everything they humanly could to make sure you thought that you would never get out alive. But here we are.
You know, on Arutz Sheva, we were accompanying Esther, accompanying the activities. Were you aware of what was happening in terms of the activities, the protests, the petitions, everything?
Esther kept me very well informed, and it gave me a lot of chizuk while I was in prison to know these things were going on, because unfortunately, the governments, plural, they weren't doing anything of any kind of significance. Quite the opposite at the time.
What do you mean, quite the opposite?
A lot of the governments that were in office actually sabotaged and undermined a lot of efforts that were being made to secure my freedom and my repatriation. And really, there were just two governments, that of Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin and Prime Minister Bibi Netanyahu. Those were the only two that were really working hard to get me home. So when I heard from Esther all of the things that were going on, it filled the void that had been created by various prime ministers. And it gave me hope that we know the story of Yonatan when he was King Shaul was going to kill him. And as it says, it was the people who saved Yonatan.
I'd like to add something here. The thing that was the hardest for him to believe, we kept him updated on everything that was going on, but the thing that was the hardest for him to feel, to internalize, was how much the people of Israel cared, how much they loved him, and how much they supported him, and how much the people wanted him home. And he would listen, and he would smile when I would tell him these things, but it was hard to feel. And now, today, days like today, where the love is just shining from everyone's faces. Every single day when we walk down the street in Jerusalem, when we walk through the Midrashot, and he's overwhelmed by people coming up, and he learned that one of the most important words in Hebrew is selfie.
Selfie. I didn't know it was a Hebrew word, but I guess it is.
We're going to take a selfie after the interview, right?
Okay,
with all due respect to the interviewed, I need a selfie, right?
You got it.
So today he feels the love, and today he sees that every word that I told him then was exactly.
Do you feel the anger about these governments, or do you feel anger towards the state still?
No. I feel intense thanks and for my wife and everyone else who helped, including Arutz Sheva. Many times people come up to me and apologize for the government not doing enough to bring me home. And I keep telling them, you don't have to say that, because I know that I know that the people wanted me home. Many did.
Why would they act against? Because they were afraid about the connections, the relations with America?
Primarily, but there were personal reasons also, where people felt that they had done things wrong, and that they didn't want me coming home to be a living reminder of what had gone on and what should have gone on. So I leave that behind, and now when I come to events like this, or even when I walk down the Midracho, or just walk anywhere, the kind of reaction I get from people just reconfirms my assumptions, my initial assumptions, that it was the land and people who were fighting to bring me home.
We're here in East Jerusalem. You experienced the recent tension, turmoil. How do you relate to what we've experienced the past few weeks?
Unfortunately, it's a function of weakness. As I said at a recent speech I gave, there's a myth that we won the battle for Jerusalem in 1967, and we didn't. The war wasn't won, a battle may have been won, but right now, as we were driving here, I asked Daniel Loy, our host, are we in Yerushalayim? After what we saw having to get here. This is our land. This is given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We shouldn't have to feel like we're stealing anything from anybody. We aren't. Quite the opposite. We're liberating the land from people who are illegally occupying it. We are not the occupiers. The other is. And so when we came here, I kept looking around saying, where are we? You know, this isn't the wilds of the territories. This is our capital. And when I hear an American Secretary of State saying that we shouldn't do certain things in Shimon HaTzadik, as if we're stealing property from somebody. That land was ours from before, long before. And Mr. Blinken ever became Secretary of State, or probably was ever born. So they've turned what should have been a real estate dispute into something way out of proportion for political ends. So when I come to a place like this, where you see the evidence of where we started this community in 1885, the pictures don't lie. There was nobody else here. And they're saying, we're stealing the land? First of all of the land is ours. This was given to us by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I'm sorry if certain governments around the world, to include the United States, don't accept that fact, but it is a fact. You know, perhaps people that take the oath of office on the Bible, certain people who are now president, should open up the Bible and look at Bereshit, and they'll see exactly where our land comes from, where our ownership of the land comes from. So here, what the community is trying to do is not to take anything from somebody, but to reestablish what was at one point. And that's not a fine distinction. That is a major distinction. That is a critical distinction that if you don't accept it, then there's something else going on.
Wow. Jonathan, what's next for you? I mean, one thing's obvious. You're not keeping quiet. You're not saying, guys, I did enough for the state of Israel and now let me be. You're out there speaking here and many places. What's next? What are your plans?
What's next? Well, I'm trying to start a business, a startup, and hopefully to benefit the country. And I hope that we'll be able to realize the goals of this company in short order so I can start giving back. I'm not through giving back to Israel at all.
Politics?
No.
The name of the company?
Yes, the name of the company, if I can give a plug, the name of the company is Third Commonwealth Energy, and it's a renewable energy company, and it's part of our efforts, Esther's and mine, to make Israel energy independent and an energy exporter. So this is basically what I think Jews have to remember. The land welcomes us, the land takes us in, but we also have to cultivate the land. We also have to improve the land. And this is what we hope we can do with this company.
I asked about politics. How do you see what's going on with the elections, the new government? Any thoughts about that?
It's very confusing, to put it mildly. And I think we just have to wait and see what happens. I didn't know this morning what was going to happen today. I don't know now what's happening. I don't know what will happen next week. We have a democracy, and sometimes it's a messy system, but as the saying goes, it's the best system available. And so until Moshiach comes, hopefully soon, we just have to endure it.
Okay, Jonathan and Esther Pollard, thank you so much. This is very meaningful for us, of course, and it's great to see you here in Jerusalem.
Toda rabah.